as a veteran-owned business and somebody who served in the United States Marine Corps, I would say that we live in the best country ever. I've learned the concept of service to others. I've been a successful business owner for quite some time, and pay into Social Security. Being at the age of 49, I'm, kind of on that verge of whether Social Security is even going to be there for that commitment to me. If you're somebody age 55 or older, maybe you've saved up for a successful retirement, I would venture to say that Social Security is still going to be a pretty large part of your retirement income. In helping thousands of families retire over the past 30 years, I have to ask you a question. Would you be ready if Social Security benefits got cut by 20% tomorrow? And if you're close to or you're in retirement time and Social Security makes, say, 30% or more of your retirement income, I want you to discover how Rob and Lori were able to figure out how much income was at risk and how to build a backup plan. That's one of the great things that the Marine Corps always taught me is we always had a backup plan. In case we were going into combat, we knew what the backup plan was. Having a backup plan can be one of your greatest scenarios because of the threat of what could happen in the future with Social Security. Without this, you're going to be really at the mercy of whatever the government decides to do with your benefits. And you ultimately have little to no control over how much Washington cuts your benefits and or when it happens. So I want you to focus on what you can control here. Let's look at an example here. Rob and Lori knew that Social Security cuts were possible, right? Whether they've listened to our show or they've seen an article on the internet or read it in a newspaper, they know that Social Security is in big trouble, right? With the big, beautiful bill, there's some great things that are going to happen for the next couple of years that could help, lower the amount that most Americans pay on Social Security. But that's a temporary tax bill, meaning that in a couple of years that goes away. So Americans, I think like most families, we get pretty comfortable living on what we take home. So you've got to look at a couple of areas. One is you want to look at the area that says, what happens if that temporary tax law under the big, beautiful bill goes away and in a couple of years, the taxation of your Social Security benefits come back? What are the steps that you're going to take now to try to reduce what that impact would look like? In addition to that, the Social Security Trust Fund is expected to be deleted in 2034. I don't know about you, but this year the year has kind of flown by. I work with a lot of retirees, and so they tell me that every year tends to go a little faster, and rightfully so. As I get a little bit older, I think that is accurate. So 2034 seems like a long way off, but taking a wait and see approach to figure out what Washington does if they do anything to help the insolvency of Social Security could be a dangerous move. Why? What politician wants to touch the issue of taxation of Social Security and taxing benefits? If we look at Rob and Lori as their example, again, they knew that those Social Security cuts were possible. They just didn't really figure out what is a solution that could be created. Their Social Security benefits, let's just say both of them were collecting $2,000 a month. Their family's Social Security benefits were $4,000 a month. If what the Social Security Administration tells us and the Social Security Trust Fund gets exhausted in less than 10 years, and they do cut benefits by 20%, that 20% reduction in walking through that math is $800 a month that Rob and Lori are going to have less income that comes in from Social Security if that worst case scenario comes through. That's $9,600 a year. And so what you kind of want to do is you want to look at, how do I replace that income, or how do you have a backup plan? So if you take $9,600 a year and you make an assumption of a 5% rate in today's dollars, that would mean that that number needs to be worth about $150,000, right? So $150,000 earning 5% interest, would pay out that roughly $9,600. Now, the good news is Social Security is not broke, right? So they're talking about in time frames, meaning that the faster you address this issue, the more time that you have to let your money compound. And that means the less dollars that you have to commit to the backup plan. So if we do the reverse math on it and we ask, how much do I need to invest today if I earned 5%? So in 9 years, it would grow to be worth $150,000. We can now run the formula on that. And what that means is that you need to invest roughly $92,000 to get that money to be worth $150,000 in about 10 years from now. Again, 9 or 10 years. And, in their situation, they were kind of concerned about the cuts. They now knew the math, and now you know the math. If you take and apply those numbers to your situation, it could tell you, what that 20% looks like and figure out, how do you replace that income with future dollars. The reality hit them in the fact that the end of the day, that's $800 a month that they could lose. And if we think about a reduction of benefits, we'd have to figure out, who's going to get the benefit reductions first. The other good thing about Rob and Lori, and Rob and Lori, followed a lot of the principles of what life taught them, right? You save money in a 401k, you pay off your debts, you have money built up in an emergency account. So how many times has the government penalized people who were successful savers, right? If you save and invest in a college savings plan and a 529, you could pay a penalty if your child wants to go apply for scholarships and grants, where, the family who never saved a dime and spent every dollar that they had on the big new car and, spent all of the money typically get some of the best college offers as well because they're broke. Well, if you're not broke, you could be somebody that's more at risk of Social Security cuts than somebody who wasn't a saver. Make sense? So the solution is, again, to look at the plan, look at what their existing assets are. So Rob and Lori, they have this, bucket of money. And having a pile of money and using it to fund your retirement is a good plan, right? It's better than not having money. But I want you to become intentional about what you're going to do with those accounts, meaning that I want you to create a bucket of money. You could have a bucket of money that's designed to provide reliable current income. You could have a bucket of money that's designed for long-term growth. In this case, what I want Rob and Lori and I want you to do is I want you to identify one of your existing buckets of money and look at creating a bucket of money and then use that bucket of money to address the issue of what if worst case scenario comes true on Social Security and there is that 20% cut. And how do you create a plan that doesn't create a complete disaster for you in the future? So there's different investment choices. I think their initial plan is, well, hopefully my stocks and bonds keep up with growth. And if and when that ever happens, hopefully we've got more growth. And I would agree that I think over time, stocks and bonds are a good part of a retirement plan. The problem with just stocks and bonds, if you want to address the Social Security issue is, what if the cuts happen in a time that we're in a recession, or what if we're in a very big downturn of the market? So now you get this $800 a month cut in income, and all of a sudden you're going to go over to your stock and bond portfolio, which is temporarily down because of where we're at in the economic cycle, and now you're taking more money out. You could compound and accelerate the risk of outliving your money if the timing doesn't work out on your stock and bonds. That 20% really could turn into a disaster if they took more money out of their account during a down market. I think that there are other vehicles that offer better advantages. And one of them I'm going to say is an annuity as an example. Now, the reason I would use an annuity, and I don't think an annuity is the right vehicle for all products, right? There's no one Swiss Army knife of investments that work well for everything. I truly believe that stocks offer great long term growth. I believe there's value in FDIC insured CDs and money market accounts. In this example, where I think the annuity provides the advantages, with an insurance contract, you can purchase predictable income regardless of what the market does. Other benefits that you can get that are side benefits is you can have lifetime income protection. With Rob and Lori, this money was Lori's retirement account, but it was important to her that having that income was protected for both of their lifetimes. So we were able to look at, joint income that provided lifetime protection. Some of the long-term care policies that are out there today address helping out in the issue of as you get older, if you need help with long-term care, meaning they offer chronic illness benefits. If you're like 97% of Americans and you've not addressed the issue of how do I protect my assets if myself or a loved one needs some long-term care, there could be some value into some of the riders and benefits that are offered on some of the insurance products that are out there. There could be benefits that are offered like death benefits as well. Again, those are side benefits. Our primary goal here is to, again, find a product that says if I deposit a lump sum of money today, how much income would that provide for me if I needed to turn that income in 5 years or in 10 years, or even if the cuts don't happen for 15 years, because the insurance companies of America can give you a proposal that tells you exactly what that income looks like. And I would caution you this as well, is you want to look and have a service like we use a feature where we look at all the top rated insurance companies and they compete because the income offer from one company to another can dramatically vary. And it actually varies on a monthly basis. It's based upon how much business an insurance company wants to get in. So like if an insurance company is getting in more business than what they planned on, they could lower their offers, right? Slows down the business. Company B over here might offer a more competitive rate. So, who offers some of the best rates today could change in the future. But that leads into the third approach, and that's the timing advantage here. Rob and Lori discovered that taking that wait and see approach could be a very risky approach that a lot of people are taking right now, and it could be the most expensive option. This wait and see trap that people fall into, one, could leave you little time if there's regulatory changes and something suddenly happens, right? They say they're going to run out of money in 2034. Will that be the year when regulations change? You don't know. It could come sooner. It could come later. But the last thing you want to do is they say, starting January of next year, here's what's going to happen, right? Then you only have a couple of months or very limited time to address those changes. Having the backup plan allows your money to compound grow over time, and it's like a light switch, meaning that you can keep it turned off and then turn on that light switch whenever Washington goes dark on your retirement plan and your Social Security benefits. The second thing is you have to look at where we're at right now in the interest rate cycle. Interest rates are the highest they've been in decades. They're either close to or at all-time record highs. And the insurance companies of America, whether it's income benefits or whether it's payout rates or whether it's straight guaranteed interest rates, they pay rates based upon where interest rates are today. So taking a wait and see approach when you have a Federal Reserve indicating that their plan is to lower interest rates means that you might need to invest more capital because you have less compound time over growth. And you might have to invest more capital if interest rates go down in the future as well. So there is certainly an advantage of developing a backup plan now versus later, getting that compound factor to work in your favor, especially if you're 55 or older, you've built up, say $500,000 or more of retirement assets. That pay raise scenario never hurts, right? So if we think about it, if that scenario doesn't happen, Rob and Lori still have a pay raise account that they can turn on in the future as well. And I think at the end of the day, the final result for Rob and Lori, their biggest win wasn't necessarily the $16,000 of income that they secured in 10 years from now. It was, more like really the transformation that happened kind of immediately, knowing what the backup plan was, knowing that before that they had a concern about the biggest threat and danger that could happen with Social Security, and they actually do cut your benefits in the future. They're worried about the government making decisions. They're like most of us. I'm a patriotic American. I love this country, but I really don't like the government very much. And the government's decisions are beyond my control. They had the ability to make a decision of something that was in their control, and that's taking and compartmentalizing a bucket of money to give them a pay raise in the future. Getting that immediate relief, knowing that you have that plan and changed, is going to give you more confidence. Going to allow you to worry less about the stress of what they talk about with Social Security changes, whether it's the big beautiful bill, and whether that is a temporary or a permanent change to taxes. Right now, it's just temporary. What the insolvency is, whether that date comes quicker or slower. You're going to have this backup plan. You're going to have a little bit more retirement security, and you're going to have an insurance that is backing you up with some extra peace of mind. So you can get that transformation really immediately. Stop losing sleep over the government, things that are beyond your control. Focus on getting complete confidence in your retirement. And if we look at it, we have a lot of challenges with taxes, a lot of challenges with the unfunded liability of Social Security. And in this video, what I want to do is help you again prepare for worst case Social Security scenario and why you should prepare now.